Declan Rice was on this stage earlier. As a Republic of Ireland fan.
I find a lot of this really quite distasteful and hard to get on board with.
We're going, aren't we, Barry?
He's arguably not even the best Nico Gonzalez in football.
Happened like 5-1 up. I mean, you can't say it's a dangerous scoreline.
Yeah, if you look on the list of the 100 club, as it was in the Premier League, that's how good he is. Now, a lot of factors you can talk about. You can talk about City's financial dominance. You can talk about state ownership. You can talk about, economic stratification. You can talk about the greater protection.
The whole of the Liew family came in during that answer.
Yeah, I'm just pleased I locked my daughter in a padlock room earlier, so I should be safe for this answer.
Ian says, any chance Dan Burn can open the batting at the Gabba this week? Watching him leave Romero's overhead kick was exactly the technique Zach Crawley needs to adopt.
For me, Clive, he's fourth on the all-time list, not top.
If the phrase is he can't look at the ball because he's in a headlock from the attacker, you sort of think maybe it shouldn't be a penalty.
And they're almost operating as if he's not there on the field.
Much like we do on this pod, I guess.
Yeah.
Now let's begin at Craven Cottage, shall we? Fulham 4, Manchester City 5. And I suspect, like a lot of people, Barry, I was watching Spurs Newcastle, and then I saw it was 4, and I was sort of flicking between two, and it was 4-1. So I sort of gave up on Fulham on this game until someone in the WhatsApp group mentioned, this is a bit lively. And I was like, well, nothing. There can't seriously been any jeopardy in this game. But what a ludicrous sort of... Well, the whole game was ludicrous, but that comeback was mad.
Yeah, bonkers. I mean, Sod's Law dictated that this was the game to which I devoted the least attention while the games were actually on. I, in an act of masochism, sat through Bournemouth, nil Everton 1 in its entirety. But they were given the updates from Craven Cottage, and when Manchester City went 4-1 up just after half-time, I thought, well, that's it, it's done, dusted. But a brilliant comeback by Fulham in a game that had 9 goals, and most of them were bloody good goals. I think Doku's spawny deflected shot was probably the worst of them. I've ranked them in order of what I think were the best.
Interesting, so have I.
Okay, well, I will go with Chukwueze number 2, Iwobi, Foden number 1, Haaland, Smith Rowe, Reinders, Foden number 2, Chukwueze number 1, and Doku.
Wow.
So,
okay, I've gone Foden 1, the outside of the box into the top corner. Smith Rowe, because it was a diving header 2. Iwobi, Haaland, Reinders, Chukwueze first, Chukwueze second, Foden second, Doku as the worst. That's my ranking.
Right, so we're agreed Doku's was the worst.
Yes, we're agreed on that. Yeah. Ian says, was that the best Kevin-inspired comeback since the gerbil helped revive TVAM? There is something, Johnny, about a home crowd when they feel a comeback is on. Almost like the opposition are just sort of helpless. There's nothing anyone can do. This is just going to happen, even if it ultimately didn't.
Yeah, there's this great camera shot, I think, late on, deep in injury time of the Fulham fans, and they're all having so much fun. I think, you go to a game like that, you're expecting Manchester City to win. You're not expecting too much out of that game in terms of points, but I think every fan who was at that game is going to remember that forever. That's one of those games that, hey, do you remember when we came back from 5-1? And they'll remember that more than, most of the wins that they'll have this season. It was a really startling kind of comeback, or a great moment. I think one of the key moment, underrated key moment, is when Nico Gonzalez comes off. I think Gonzalez comes off at either 5-1 or 5-2. He comes off, and he's an underrated sort of player because, partly because he's not the best, he's not even the best Nico at City, and also there's another. He's arguably not even the best Nico Gonzalez in football. But I think he's been really quite important for City in the absence of Rodri, and they bring him off for Stones. And I think if he's on the pitch, I don't think those last 2 Fulham goals happen. I have a theory about City's defending, which is that if you look at how a lot of those goals are being scored, I think they are almost trying to pace themselves a little bit too much across the season, and I don't think there's enough aggression in I don't think there's enough aggression from them in the first phase of defending. They are letting teams have a lot of shots around the box. If you look at, they're taking an extra touch in the box. If you look at how Nunez against Leeds, where Calvert-Lewin gets in, there's just a little bit of, I don't want to say laziness, but there's a little bit of laxness to them. I don't think it's tactical so much. I think it's the fact that Guardiola is so clearly trying to pace them for a long season physically, that I think some of that is seeping into their technical defending as well.
Is it normal to feel angry after a win? You're a City fan, Will. Do you think, you sort of think if it's 2-1, if they're 2-1 up, it doesn't happen, like 5-1 up? I mean, you can't say it's a dangerous scoreline, but there is something about 5-1 where whoever you are, you just think, well, this is done.
Yeah, a few cigars might have been brought out and lit up in defence. I mean, it is problematic that Matheus Nunes can't defend, and Pep keeps going on about how he could be one of the best in the world. I'm not quite as confident as him in it. Every time that someone got it on the wing, and there was numerous people, they just knew that they had him, and easy crosses into the box, and I think just the general sense of panic there. That's what's frustrating. You're supposed to be, arguably one of the best sets of defenders, expensive, Diaz, Gvardiol, really, really good defenders. It's just constant panic, just trying to get the ball clear in the end. And, Gvardiol admitting he's watching the clock. It was mildly embarrassing considering, what's available, that they just couldn't cope. And I was expecting an equaliser for quite a while, because City weren't really getting out, apart from then inexplicably Gvardiol having one cleared off the line himself, because that's what you want your centre back doing in the 90th minute. So getting through on goal, because everything's all right at the other end. I don't need to be there. It's fine. I'll just get up the pitch. So yeah, and it has been quite consistently bad. As you mentioned, Johnny mentioned against Leeds, some of the errors that led to goals there, with Nunez again, just terrible defending, Gvardiol for the penalty. They just don't look confident. Guardiola keeps saying he can smell good things are going to happen this season, but I think unfortunately the overriding smell of shit in the defence might be problematic for him eventually. So the upside is forwards look all right at the moment. People other than Haaland
do look good.
People other than Haaland have started to score, because prior to the weekend it was Haaland had got 14 and everyone else that had scored had got 1. So yeah, Foden's finding some form. Doku obviously adding a goal to looking a very dangerous player on the wing is helpful, but yeah, that defence doesn't scream title challenge at the moment.
No, in Josh King and Chukwueze, Barry. I mean, Fulham have two of the most exciting young players I've seen for a while.
Yeah, Josh King has made such an impression this season that I now no longer do a double take when I hear his name being mentioned as a Fulham player, thinking it's the other Josh King. He's a very exciting player. Has he got his goal yet? I know that was a thing for ages. He kept scoring his first Premier League goal, and then they kept being disallowed by VAR or being offside or whatever. So I don't know if he's got that yet. It's a milestone for him to look forward to, like the milestone Haaland reached last night. He's really exciting. Chukwueze is a really exciting player. Kevin, I think, did start really well. I'm not playing as well as he had. I'm not sure how many opportunities he's had. But, yeah, I mean, I thought the 2 goals Chukwueze got last night were really good, really high quality. I don't know much about him, I must confess, but he's a delight to watch when on form.
Yeah, he is. His first, especially, was a brilliant finish. Maybe I was wrong to put it down at number 6 behind Reinders. I just liked the move from Haaland to Reinders. On Haaland's 100 Premier League goals, Johnny, quicker than any other player. So he's got it in 111 games. Vieira got it in 124, Harry Kane 141, Aguero 147, and Thierry Henry 160. We are witnessing history here, Johnny.
Yeah, the stat that I saw was that if you look on the list of the 100 club, as it was in the Premier League, his closest challengers are the guys he comes up next are Cristiano Ronaldo and Didier Drogba, who I think a lot of people would have in the conversation for greatest Premier League forwards of all time. they've played more than twice as many games as Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland is literally twice as good as them. I mean, in terms of his goal rate, you have to go back to guys like Dixie Dean and Brian, like Jimmy Greaves doesn't get close. That's how good he is. Now, a lot of factors you can talk about. You can talk about City's financial dominance. You can talk about state ownership. You can talk about economic stratification. You can talk about the greater protection that strikers get from referees in the modern age. But I think you can only talk about that stuff to a certain point. At some stage, you just have to say this guy is a real, genuine, one-of-a-kind player with an absolutely unique set of skills and a set of circumstances that are perfect for him. And by the way, a very impressive fitness record as well. So, yeah, he's good, isn't he, Barry?
Yeah, I mean, for the tape, the whole of the Liew family came in during that answer, and a bit like one of those News 24, someone's doing a serious bit about the bonds market in Japan, and then just like children running in the back. So we are live on. We are now on video, Johnny. I don't know if you care. I don't know. She's
just draped me with a Chinese banner.
Okay. Oh, that's lovely. Yes, I mean that is true what Johnny says, isn't it, Will? I mean, it's sort of and it's interesting that Haaland still has not answered everybody in how good he is. And I don't know if that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm just pleased I locked my daughter in a padlock room earlier, so I should be safe for this answer. Yeah, I mean, you still get a lot of the nonsense around, oh, he only takes 9 touches a game and, he's not as involved as he should be. I mean, as anyone in football will tell you, the hardest thing to do is to score goals. And as it transpires, he scores a hell of a lot, an incredible rate. And that's all you can do. I mean, it doesn't matter what else you're doing in the game. It's not his fault that the rest of them can't defend or anything like that. And it should be pointed out, he did get a really good assist last night with what he can do, hold off the defender, spin, turn, lovely ball through. It's not like a complete one-trick pony. It's just his job is to score goals, and he does. You can't really criticise the rest of it when your scoring rate is so incredible. And the thing is about him, I mean, the only disappointment probably is that last night should have had more. Through on goal, hit the inside of the post header, hit the post. But yeah, incredible player. You speak to anyone about him, incredible work rate, commitment to football, etc. He's not just living off natural talent. He puts the effort in. He knows what he's doing. He gets better every season, which is quite impressive considering, what's gone before. And he just has it. And he has that, he puts that fear into defenders. And the defenders are actually quite worried that he's not involved in the game because you don't know where he's going to pop up next. You think you sort of got him under control, and then the next minute he's gone, he's through, he's out, jumped you, whatever, because they've sort of think, it's all right, we've got Erling here. But his concentration levels are, something, I've not seen in a striker. When you're not getting service even, that you can just sort of drift out the game. And people think he drifts out, but he's always involved. He's always trying to do something, and eventually it comes off. Pretty much every game, as the stats show.
Without wanting to detract in any way from Erling's achievement, I feel I should stick up for players who plied their trade in the top flight before the Premier League began. Sunderland's Dave Halliday got his 100 goals in 100 games. Some debate it might have been 101, but it was certainly fewer than 111. Dixie Dean got his century of goals in 105 games, and Arsenal's Ted Drake did it in 108. So Haaland, for me, Clive, is fourth on the all-time list, not top. But there you go.
Noted. Let's go to St James's Park. Newcastle 2, Spurs 2. Absolutely terrible first half. A kind of all right second half between two not particularly good teams. Newcastle were a bit better, Johnny, had more shots, but didn't create all that much. Spurs only had 2 shots on target. So, I mean, I guess for Thomas Frank, just not losing is enormous after the week they've had.
Yeah, it was a huge moment, and a huge moment that happened in very slow motion. I mean, Romero, he is so pumped after scoring that first goal, that bullet header at the near post, getting ahead of Dan Burn. And when he scores the 95th minute equaliser, that saves a point and very possibly, saves his manager. he's almost a little bit embarrassed about it. Obviously, everyone's mobbing it because, as you see on the replay, it comes off his shin. It is one of those moments that you think, how has somebody not cleared that? It goes through 2 or 3 Newcastle players who are probably expecting it to come a lot quicker than it does. And these are moments that potentially turn seasons. I think Frank has I think attracted quite a lot of unfair criticism for some of the performances have been bad, but I think the calls that you see people saying he's out of his depth, or that he's been found out, which I think is very premature. Spurs have not been playing well, but I think there are a lot of mitigating factors there. Most of all, I think actually, people talk about the injuries to the front four. I think the midfield is just not anywhere near good enough to protect a defence that you would say on at full strength is a very, very strong, one of the best defences in the league, certainly one of the best centre-back pairings, but they are not getting the protection from the, Bentancur and Sarr are not giving them the protection that they need, and so they are getting exposed. They're conceding again a lot of shots from dangerous areas. They're not defending the edge of their box well. But this is they did show a little bit of progress here. They were rocked in the early part. I think they came into it, played some quite good football towards the end of the first half, and then Newcastle were then basically able to. They brought on, I think it's Bruno at half time, and they brought on Anthony Gordon and Elanga, and the strength of those reinforcements. They were able to change the energy of the game.
Ian says, any chance Dan Burn can open the batting at the Gabba this week? Watching him leave Romero's overhead kick was exactly the technique Zach Crawley needs to adopt. Carl, is it possible to get a negative rating on the Trevor Sinclair spectrum? As Kieran says, as you mentioned, has an overhead kick ever been slower than Romero's? I mean, I suppose, Barry, he does well to get up, doesn't he? He's on the floor, he gets up, and then... But it is just the amount of time it takes to go in is sort of hilarious.
Yeah, no, his technique was good, but it was undeniably a shinner, and it bounced on its way in. But it seemed he got lucky insofar as there was just this narrow gap in a crowded penalty area, and he managed to steer, unwittingly, I suspect, the ball through that gap. I don't really know if Aaron Ramsdale should have done better or not, but it did look like just everything slowed down, and as this ball pootled inexorably into the back of the net. And look, it's the 4th minute of added time, not really the time to debate the quality of the goal, and this look of all the Newcastle players were sort of looking at each other going, how did that go in? But it did. And
it did.
They will be gutted over that. I'd say Eddie Howe was sick, because Newcastle should have won that game, I think.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yes, Will?
Do you know when a defender or someone that doesn't score very often whacks one in from sort of 25, 30 yards, and for the rest of the season, the fans, when he ever gets the ball in that position, just shout, shoot!
Mm-hmm.
I think whenever Romero's up for a corner now, there should just be sort of chance for a replica of that overhead kick, sort of every. Because if you can do it there, you can keep doing it. I think that could be his trademark, the sort of, grandmother overhead kick I like to describe it as.
Yeah. T says the other big sort of moment from this game is Newcastle's penalty. Bentancur on Dan Burn. I mean, no one. I know I'm not objective in this, but not even the Newcastle players really appealed for a penalty. T says, after over 2 years of Arsenal pushing and barging on every corner, why does the referee clamp down on pushing and barging start with penalising Spurs for it? I mean, that's not quite, but there have been others. I did look at Dale Johnson, who knows the laws of the game. He says, obviously there's a question of consistency over holding decisions. For me, with the current guidance, including no mutual holding, because Bentancur has absolutely zero interest in the play and only opponent, means this is a fair VAR intervention. But Barry, I'm not sure I agree. I think Dan Burn is... It's not a headlock. People are saying he's got Bentancur's head in a headlock, but he's holding his head. I don't know. I thought this was really, really harsh. And that sort of consistency thing, you sort of think... In fact, even on Monday's pod, we were basically praising the Chelsea defenders for doing this against Arsenal, I think.
No, I don't think we were.
Okay.
My initial thought was it was a penalty, and the more I look at it now, the more I think no, it wasn't. I think it was very much 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But I think it was probably given because Bentancur initiated the pulling and dragging, and because the ball was heading towards the area where Dan Burn might have got it if he hadn't been impeded. But I do concede that it did look by the end of it, Byrne had him in something of a headlock, and his momentum appeared to cause both of them to fall over. But in terms of consistency, this happens all the time when corners are being taken, and it's hardly ever punished. And I was surprised it was given, but I think you could argue, it was, depending on which team you support, you could make a decent case for it being a penalty or not being a penalty.
Does anyone remember the Daily Mail's short-lived "hands off in the box" campaign? They ran over several back pages, maybe about 10 years ago. The scourge of defenders grappling in the box has to be. They got Dermot Gallagher, I think they got Martin Keown, they got a lot of prominent names in football to denounce this. I don't think it was a penalty because I don't think Bentancur. I don't think he can get out of Dan Burns' headlock. So he couldn't look at the ball if he wanted to. But I think on a more general point, everyone says, "Oh, you've got to police this. This grappling in the box. It gets out of hand." I think one of the consequences of that is that if it becomes harder for defenses to deal with a set piece, you end up with the stultifying set piece ball that we've seen in the Premier League this season, because teams simply see it as an opportunity to create chaos, and they know that the current regulations will be on their side. So that, for me, is reason enough to I think give a lot of this stuff a bit of a pass.
Yeah, I don't know what you think. Well, I just sort of think it just is so much harder for the defender, because obviously if an attacker commits a foul, it just doesn't matter. It's a free kick, and so it's just so weighted in. And as Johnny says, he can't get out. He can't. At one point, he's if the phrase is he can't look at the ball because he's in a headlock from the attacker, you sort of think maybe it shouldn't be a penalty.
Yeah, you had Jamie Carragher on Sky said it wasn't a penalty. Jonathan Woodgate was on the radio saying it wasn't a penalty to the best centre backs. Over the Premier League, probably know a bit more of what happens in the box than a lot of people.
Yeah, but isn't that very much defenders' union?
Yeah, Dan Burn just got up and went, "If you like, can I have one? I'm not too fussed." That's it. I think if you look at it, it's a bit of grappling. I think Bentancur's problem is he gets wrong side at one point, so it looks a bit worse. But I mean, as you say, I think it's just one of those where it's a dangerous game if they're being given, especially on review. If it's given by the referee and he doesn't change his mind, fine, etc.
That's the mad thing. It's like, how is that reviewed? How have they said to review? Anyway, I just want to ask Will a question on Newcastle, which you sort of think are really firing Newcastle as they were against Everton. Win that game.
Yeah.
And they're just not. Tottenham are not quite at it, sure, but Newcastle aren't quite at it either.
I mean, they were quite at it in the second half. Those changes, did create a bit of momentum, bit of energy that was completely lacking. I mean, without Bruno Guimaraes in the starting lineup, Newcastle don't win. In the 9 games he's missed, over a lengthy period, they've not won a single one, which shows that he's quite important, and probably more important than Tonali. Maybe he should be on the pitch from the start. I know it's a difficult schedule, etc. But also, I think the game in general at the start, Newcastle were the more positive, and then it sort of settled down into absolute dearth. But then Gordon is another one who hasn't been at it all season in the Premier League. Turns up in the Champions League, so fair play to him, did really well there. But I think Newcastle got to hope that's a turning point for him, coming in and making a big impact, looking dangerous throughout. really cool for the penalty in quite difficult circumstances where obviously it went on for a long time. And then even after that, there was sort of the bizarre situation where he did take the ball originally and then Voltemade got involved and then he got the ball back. But, it's always those sort of comical situations of, no, I'm taking the penalty. No, I'm taking the penalty. But yeah, I think it's just a team in Newcastle that are really finding the schedule quite difficult.
Yeah,
because
it was just another deft assist from Voltemade. Michael says, how pleased was Barry with his Declan Rice zinger at the FSA Awards? Yes, we are the champions. Thank you to everyone for voting. Don't ever let us down again. You were there, Barry. You brought the house down with your victory speech.
Declan Rice was on this stage earlier. As a Republic of Ireland fan, I notice he has left already. Because that is what Declan Rice does. Declan Rice is probably down in Mayfair at a fancier, slightly more glamorous award ceremony as we speak. Well, it's not really for me to say that I did that. It seemed to go down well. It wasn't so much a speech as the hostess, Victoria Derbyshire, asking me questions and then me proceeding to answer completely different ones. But I got a dig in at Declan Rice, who won Player of the Year and turned up to collect his award in person, which is always nice when a player makes the effort to do that. It's not always possible for them to do so. Alessia Russo won Female Player of the Year, but she was busy on England duty, so she couldn't be there. Really good night put on by the FSA again, as always. And this year they did it in the most awful circumstances because the FSA chief, Kevin Miles, who sort of starts the evening each year with a kind of State of the Nation address, was absent because his son very tragically died last week. So that kind of put a downer on the whole evening. Kevin's a lovely bloke. His staff at the FSA are lovely, lovely people. They're very tight-knit. So for them to be able to put on such a good night in those awful circumstances was hats off to them, I suppose. But it was a good evening nonetheless. And yeah, our thoughts go out to Kevin, who's a friend of the show, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, wonderful guy. And you have our deepest sympathies. Back to the Premier League. Bournemouth 0, Everton 1. Andrew says Bournemouth look lost right now. Could they get dragged into relegation trouble? Barry, you, as you said, sat through the whole of this game while the entertainment was happening elsewhere. What did you make of it?
It wasn't great, I have to say. Bournemouth are in a real rut now. They've lost 4 and drawn 1 of their last 5 games. They started this one quite well. They had a couple of early half chances. Then Everton started to take control. Both teams missing that killer final ball. Anton Semenyo had probably the best chance of the first half, but was denied by Pickford. Everton had a series of corners at one stage where it looked like they might score. Alex Scott headed onto his own bar. Tierno Barry was denied by a combination of the post and Petrovic in the Bournemouth goal. And then, yeah, Bournemouth had a goal disallowed for offside. Krupi goal disallowed for offside. But it was a pretty poor first half. The second half, Tierno Barry missed another decent chance after a ball ricocheted his way. He was denied by Petrovic. And the goal from Grealish took a horrible deflection that completely wrong-footed Petrovic. I'd say Everton probably just about deserved to win. It wasn't a good game. The one thing I did notice in this game is in Jack Grealish, Iliman Ndiaye and Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Everton have a brilliant front three, operating behind Tierno Barry, but they seem to have just completely given up on Barry, and they're almost operating as if he's not there on the field.
Much like we do on this pod, I guess.
Yeah. Very good. And I suppose I don't want to pick on him because Beto is no better. I think Beto has got 1 goal this season. Tierna Barry still hasn't scored. But yeah, I very much get the impression that those 3 are working in something. Look, let's not give the ball to him because he is not going to do anything. And the chances that did come his way, one was from a ricochet and the others were from corners. So yeah, that's kind of interesting to see. And you wonder how good Everton could be if they had a decent striker, but they don't.
I think that was Barry had his first shot on target of the season last night, which isn't.
So he's getting there. He's getting there.
Yeah,
Adam,
that's it.
Yeah,
he
Adam
did have a
say
goal
he was-
disallowed at the weekend, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Doesn't
Adam did
count,
say
does
who
it?
will score a Premier League goal first, Barry or Barry. I mean, you know, Barry has a better chance, but you never know. Barry might make it. Johnny, it's the World Cup draw on Friday. You wrote a big piece about Gianni Infantino's quite cosy relationship with Donald Trump. Are you looking forward to the Peace Prize and the draw itself?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, we used to look forward to. I mean, World Cup draws used to be. They're so much fun. I guess a lot of people will still have fun.
Yeah, I'm
I've
still
just
looking
had
forward
an
to
email.
all the groups and all that stuff. That's fun.
Yeah, the pots and the permutations. I've just had an email drop into my account from FIFA, from the FIFA press office, saying star-studded entertainment lineup announced for the final draw. Global
playing?
icons Heidi Klum and Kevin
Yes.
Hart.
Yeah.
Live performances from Andrea Bocelli, Village People, and global music superstar Robbie Williams. So,
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people will have a good deal of fun. But obviously, it is hard to escape the shadow of the fact that it's taking place at the Kennedy Center in Washington, which is one of those institutions that has pretty much been Trump washed. He's installed himself as the president or the chairman or something, and installed board members that are all Trumpists, and turned it into his little opera house. The fact that even now, 6 months from the tournament, we're not entirely sure which cities are going to be hosting which matches because the Trump is still threatening to take games away from cities. He's threatening to invade co-hosts, and Infantino is chuckling along when he jokes about it. It is a World Cup like no other, and I think because it's almost a little bit of a change in pace, a change in tone from the rest of football. It is increasingly beginning to look as chaotic as everything else, to be honest. And while I'm looking forward to the draw, I'm looking forward to the tournament. I won't be going next summer, and I'm not envious of anyone who is, frankly, to be honest. I find a lot of this really quite distasteful and hard to get on board with.
We're going, aren't we, Barry?
Yeah, good luck. I mean, good luck in the queues. Good luck with ice, and good luck showing them your social media account. Are people in America really going to want to pay thousands of pounds to watch Uzbekistan against Cameroon? Did Cameroon even make it? Or Jordan against Sweden or whatever, or if they make it. So
I think you've just named 5 teams who aren't going to be there, Johnny.
They could do. Sweden could qualify through the playoffs,
yeah.
I think. Jordan are there.
Okay, right. I stand correct.
I'd have already do pick Curacao, I guess. Yeah, apart from that, it's going to be great, I guess. And we should forget it's in Canada and Mexico at the same time, don't we? We sort of, and Infantino sort of has certainly spent significantly less time, if any time, with, the leaders of those countries. And that issue about price gouging is, this is how Gianni maintains his power, right? Because this is how FIFA get their money, and then they dole their money out to other, to the people that support him, and then
the village people
he stays
that
there
support him,
forever.
sounds
The
of it.
village people, that support him. Yeah.
They don't come cheap. I mean, I think it's all
but they don't.
worthwhile if it gets the
They all
village
still
people
are-
back up.
Yeah, and they all still go in, the village people. They still
they save a lot on accommodation.
Well, of course they do, but can they all dress up like that? I mean, I'm sure they can't do. I mean, maybe Who knows? We'll see.
They're all working for ICE now, so they've got a lot of the uniforms prepared.
No, God, imagine if me and Barry try and get into the States, we're taken down by the construction worker from the village people, and we're not allowed in. We're kept in solitary for 6 weeks. Anyway, it'll be interesting. We'll cover what happens in the draw on Monday's pod.
Being in solitary for 6 weeks during the World Cup, it'd be like an extended version of Sky's The Box.
They just come out and show us
who won.
So, someone lifting the World Cup. We'll be like, what?
Harry Kane holding the World Cup. And I just go, right, let me back in there. And throw away the key, please.
We won't be laughing when they play this to us as they're throwing it. As they're throwing it. You joked about it. Here you are, Sonny. Boom.
Just on a loop.
Anyway, exactly. Oh no, this is what they play as we're sitting there back and forth. Me and Barry talking to each other going, you think this podcast is good? You won't by mid-July. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Now, the families of those who died in the 1989 Hillsborough disaster have said it is a bitter injustice that no police officer will ever be held accountable for a catalogue of failings set out in the final report of the police watchdog after a 14-year investigation. We will never get justice, said Charlotte Hennessy, whose father James died at the age of 29. Nobody's ever going to go to prison for killing them, so we'll never get justice, and we knew that. Margaret Aspinall, mother of James, who was 18 and other victims, said it really makes you very, very angry when you think of all those 97 who died unlawfully killed, and yet no one's been held to account. To me, that is a disgrace. Some of the officers, including Peter Wright, the Chief Constable of South Yorkshire Police at the time of the disaster, have died since. Margaret Aspinall said, how lucky are they to have died in their own home, not traumatised like we all were. The youngest who died at Hillsborough was 10. How lucky are they to grow old? David Conn is the Guardian's investigations correspondent, has covered this story for many years. I mean, I guess that is the headline, isn't it, David? That there will be no, justice for the 97. That is the phrase that we have heard time after time after time, and there will be no justice.
Yeah, that is the outcome. That's what this outcome is. I mean, what they've done here is it's the police watchdog called the Independent Office for Police Conduct, and they have done, as you said, a 14-year investigation. So it started in 2012 after the Hillsborough Independent Panel report, which completely changed the narrative, which beat back that the false police stories against the Liverpool supporters, that somehow they misbehaved and that was a cause of the disaster, which has been comprehensively demolished. And so the IOPC has been investigating these areas of police responsibility for the disaster. It's under the noses of the police that 97 people could be killed at an FA Cup semi-final, and then they couldn't accept responsibility in the subsequent, at all, but in the subsequent inquiries that followed, and it forced, and because of legal failures. See, one of my big points, Max, is that the focus is all on the police, and it should be. And this report was by the police watchdog. But it is the job of the legal system and the courts to actually sift out what's true and, to dispense justice. So the failure to actually dispense justice and to leave the families with this unbelievable, ludicrous outcome. So the outcome, first of all, it should never, ever have taken 36 years. They shouldn't be having to deal with any sort of official process about this terrible disaster and this terrible loss that they suffered 36 years ago, a whole generation ago. I mean, the reporter who we sent from our Manchester office to the press conference yesterday wasn't born when Hillsborough happened. And this is what I've tried to stress in some of my coverage, that it's also failures of the legal system that have failed to hold people accountable, failed to dispense justice, left the families with this really quite ludicrous contradiction that 97 people have been unlawfully killed, but nobody is responsible for the unlawful killing, right? And the legal failures are the reason why it's also taken so long, because they did a miscarriage of justice at the first inquest in 1991. And when people have grown up with the campaign for justice, as you said, justice for the 96 as it was, justice for the 97 as it's been since 2021, what they were campaigning against was that first inquest verdict of accidental death in 1991. And the judges, this is a big thing of mine that I really want people to understand, because it's one of the lesser known parts of the story. They went to the High Court in 1993 to try and get that overturned, and the judges just dismissed them. So they were forced to fight that first inquest for another 19 years. And that's like taking up everybody's time, taking up everybody's life, traumatizing everyone, keeping this terrible disaster, so central in the lives of everybody. They always said, we can't grieve, we can't move on. And then it took this process in 2012 to finally get the inquest quashed, which I was there that day, which the judges did in 2012. And I said in one of my pieces, and it just took an hour and a half, and it was like those 19 years of agony had never been caused to the families.
Yeah, and also just for those families who, don't have, they at the time are dealing with such grief and such tragedy, and don't have recourse to all the things you need to fight this, right? Like how do you find, who do you talk to? How do you get the legal processes to understand? You don't want to have to deal with any of that at the start and for so long as well. And their fight has been sort of unbelievably brave and like sort of heroic in a way.
Absolutely it has. There's another way of looking at that, Max, which is that's how hard it's been for the Hillsborough families. That's how much of a battle they've had to fight relentlessly for 36 years, and they haven't got justice at the end, and they were denied justice. Yeah. The second inquest verdict, so the inquest was finally quashed. Then the new inquest started in 2014, which was supported by the IOPC investigation. And it lasted 2 years, and you'll all remember it. Finally, in April 2016, because it's all taken so long, sometimes the dates run into each other, they finally got this historic verdict from that inquest that the 97, as it is now, were unlawfully killed due to gross negligence manslaughter by the South Yorkshire Police officer in charge, Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield. And they were specifically asked, did any behaviour of the Liverpool supporters contribute to the disaster? And they explicitly said no in the verdict. So therefore, there is a legal finding that no behaviour by Liverpool supporters contributed to the disaster. And I was there a lot at the inquest, and all the family's lawyers did. They had to fight this false narrative again for 2 years. And it was very, very traumatic, the inquest. And do you know what they did to disprove the police case? They just played the video. It was all on television and it was all on film and different CCTV. They just played it, and everybody could see that nobody was misbehaving, nobody was noticeably drunk, but you are allowed to have a drink before a football match, and that the disaster was caused by catastrophic police mismanagement. So that was 27 years from the disaster that they finally got the truth, and the verdict established by the legal system. But then there's been no accountability for that, and that's really what this report said, which is another 9 years on, right? But another way of looking at that question that you asked me is, this is a group of people who've had such a terrible battle and had such obstacles put in their way getting justice from the British legal system and from English police forces, right? But actually, they were incredibly well-resourced compared to many, many families who are fighting injustice. There actually was a large number of them. They almost had a whole city behind them. They certainly had the support of Liverpool they're part of Liverpool Football Club, essentially, which is one of the most high-profile and influential and, well-known institutions in the country. And yet, for families like that, it's been such a struggle, and it's 36 years without justice. So think about just a lone family fighting a terrible injustice with no publicity, with no support, with no resources at all. And it makes you fear that there's a huge amount of injustice in the system that isn't being acknowledged.
Said that 12 officers would have been charged with gross misconduct. So why can't they be, even if they've retired?
That was the police rules at the time that they served, and that's always been the rules for them at the time they served. And Duckenfield himself retired on the grounds of ill health. He was actually supposed to face disciplinary proceedings in 1991, and he retired on medical grounds and never faced any charges, and neither did the other superintendent who was going to be charged.
These police officers who have disgraced themselves, they many of them are senior, they let this happen, then they lied about it. Statements, hundreds of statements were altered. Does the fact that I presume these guys are living in, the ones that are still alive are living in disgrace and are pariahs, is that any consolation to the families?
I don't think we really know how they're living, and I don't think the families feel that they are living in disgrace and and as pariahs. I think some of the comments that family members made about that issue after the report was published was more that they feel like they've had comfortable retirements on full police pensions, and that the point about never facing accountability is that there hasn't been accountability. I think that some of the families, they said that there is some, they recognise that there is some strength in naming these people now, and in saying that some of those people, that there would have been 12 gross misconduct cases, and it did really hit quite hard that they're saying that the Chief Constable of South Yorkshire Police, Peter Wright, who was a towering figure in the 1980s, that was a very, very powerful police force that had defeated the miners' strike in 84, 85 in a very brutal way. And Peter Wright oversaw the whole campaign and led the whole campaign to deflect responsibility and to mount this false narrative against the Liverpool supporters. So to name him and say that he would have faced a gross misconduct case is quite a strong historic finding for, if you like, the story of what's happened here. But Peter Wright, I think, died in 2011. I mean, he passed away. He's been passed away 14 years. So there's no actual accountability.
David, thanks so much for coming on, and thanks for your tireless work on this story as well. We really appreciate it.